friends here. I'm a board member of the JCRC AJC in Detroit, and I'm here as a Frank Fellow. And this year we're going to be celebrating the 50th anniversary of the reunification of Jerusalem. Today you'll be hearing about Jerusalem's shared space. It is important to explore the ways Jerusalem residents are bridging divides and building bridges within Jerusalem. In recent years, as concepts of shared society have become more deeply rooted in organizations working across societal divisions, the educational sphere has seen an upsurge of programs that incorporate shared life principles and greater diversity and professionalism in their activity. IAN is a project of the Jewish Council for Public Affairs and the Jewish Federation of North America, which works with national partners to ensure that the local federations and JCRCs are given the resources and strategies to explore the growing body of programs now comprising the field of shared life education, which aims to provide the next generation of Jewish and Arab Israelis with tools, experience, and awareness for cultivating a shared society in a diverse and multicultural country. Today we'll hear from Myriam, Darmoni, Charbit, who serves as Director of Civics and Shared Life Education at the Center for Educational Technology in Tel Aviv. Her work focuses on developing strategies and resources for teachers to nurture civic dialogue in the classrooms and to engage Jewish and Arab educators in Israel into meaningful conversations and joint learning initiatives between their schools. Mazen Faraj, the co-leader of the Parent Circle Families Forum, a joint Palestinian-Israeli organization of over 600 families, all of whom have lost a close family member as a result of the prolonged conflict. Father Josh Thomas, the Executive Director of Kids for Peace International, a Jerusalem-based interfaith youth movement serving more than 1,800 Jewish, Christian, and Muslim youth, parents, and volunteers each year. Kids for Peace's mission is to end conflict and inspire hope in Jerusalem and divided societies around the world. Now introduce Ethan Felson, IAN Executive Director, who will moderate our conversation today.
Thank you very much, Jordan. And the winner for Best Speaker is, Jordan, would you read it? Thank you. So, if you didn't catch that, you have to go watch the news this morning. I actually, it was a rare thing to be in the hotel room and see the news sometime in November for no particular reason. I canceled my cable. So it's interesting to be here with the cable and watching a news program. And it is easy to turn on the news and to read the news about what is happening in the Middle East, what is happening in Israel and Palestine, and feel despair. And one of the questions that we all hear quite often is, what gives you hope? And the work that the three of you lead is what gives me hope to do the work that we need to do. So I want to thank you. The shared life education programs that you lead advance equality and respect. They prevent and repair stereotypes. They increase familiarity. They promote social and socioeconomic integration. And you do it against a backdrop that I'm sure feels like you are constantly pushing a boulder uphill. The separate educational systems for Jews and Arabs, systems that were developed to preserve cultures and languages, have an impact of increasing the divides that exist. Add to that a conflict with different narratives, violence, walls. So what you do is building an infrastructure of familiarity, empathy that is totally necessary for a peaceful future. So I want to thank you and ask a couple of heroes up on this table. For far too long, groups like yours have toiled alone. They really have, kind of in a wilderness. And in more recent years, the USAID and Ministry of Education and folks like us at IAN are finally kind of waking up and realizing that if peace is to happen, you have to happen. And what you do has to be scaled up so that we can have a world in which there's empathy across the conflict and familiarity. And so at IAN, we enjoy a very close working relationship with Kids for Peace and the interagency task force. And we look forward to continuing and to deepening that. Myriam is going to speak for a couple of minutes and provide some framing framing, and then Mazen and Myriam, and then Josh are each going to present some remarks, and then we'll have a chance for conversation. So please.
So good morning. I'm really happy to be with you here today. I'm working at the Center for Education and Technology, which is a big educational NGO in Tel Aviv, and I'm the director of a team of 12 staff members from various backgrounds in Israel. And our work is basically to develop some contents on the field of education for democracy, human rights, anti-racism, and shared education in Israel. But and every year we are reaching out to about 1,200 teachers and about 70 principals around the country. And each of these people are the educators that can really make a difference. So it's a big privilege to be here today to share with you our work. But as I spoke before with Stephanie, and I thought that it was interesting and relevant to give you a little bit of background about Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is a special place for all of us. And it's also a special place in terms of Jewish-Arab relations. So you have some printout of a little bit of demographic data, and I think it's important to understand that inside, and that the basic question we're asking here is that effort in the field of sharing education can significantly improve the relationship people to people, as you mentioned. And this is really our challenge because, as you know, the politics are tough. And so education can do some work on the ground. But in order for this work to be more systemic, there are a full set of rules and methodologies that we've been developing. One of them is working closely with institutions like the Ministry of Education and like the Jerusalem municipality. So in order just to get a little bit into understanding the complexity of Jerusalem, inside the Israeli population per se, we have 20% of Arab citizens. So this is something that you probably know, but what's interesting to notice is that in Jerusalem, the picture is a little bit different. In Jerusalem, about 37% of the population are Palestinians who hold an ID for residency inside Jerusalem, but they are not citizens. So basically, the connection between these nearly 40% of the population of Jerusalem and the rest of Jerusalem is it's like these schools are very separated schools. And as a matter of fact, in Jerusalem, when we look at the figures of the public education system, we have a divided picture. We have, as a whole, 262,000. What? Oh yeah, so that you can see it in this pie. You have print out if you want to look at it. So we have 2,062,000 pupils in Jerusalem. It's the biggest education system in Israel. In terms of concentration of Arab population, it's the bigger concentration of Arab kids in the country. And it's totally separated, except for one school. You probably know about the hand-in-hand school that works together. All the other schools are totally separate. Okay? So our challenge at CET is to address this question because you talked about the fact that parents in Israel and in Palestine, basically, are very minded to the fact that they want to educate their kids to be raised upon their own values and traditions. And it's something that hand-in-hand is trying to challenge. And it works very nicely in the hand-in-hand, but for 95% of the population of the parents, it's not an option. So what we are trying to do is to find a compromise and to create some sustained and regular contact between those schools, while each school is keeping up its own identity. And this is a huge challenge, how you get into that. How do you work, first of all, with the grown-ups, with the principals, and with the teachers, with lots of institutional support, because the emotion, the feeling that is spread out very equally in Jerusalem is the fear. So in order for the grown-ups, the educators, to be ready to get into that effort, you have to do lots of work of people to people, of bringing the educators together, the principals, when we look at Jerusalem, we have 100,000 Palestinian kids, 100,000 ultra-Orthodox kids, and we have 62,000 either secular or religious kids. That's the picture of the system, of the divided system of Jerusalem. And when we look deeper into that, we realize that the East Jerusalem school have basically three bosses. They have to be accountable to three different systems. First one, the contents. After Oslo Agreement, the content in East Jerusalem are from the Palestinian Authority. I mean, they are teaching according to the Palestinian curriculum. But the salaries of the teachers are paid by the Ministry of Education. And third, the buildings in which these people are operating their schools are built and funded by the Jerusalem municipality. So this creates a very complex situation for the Palestinian principals and teachers because they're in between of those three agencies. Obviously, for the Jewish school, either ultra-Orthodox or religious or secular schools, the picture is much simpler in terms of identity and sense of belonging. They are Israelis, and they teach according to Israeli curricula. Each of those schools have their own curricula. It's not the same for the three of those. I mean, we teach in Israel different stuff, we teach, for instance, history differently in a religious school, in a secular school, and in ultra-Orthodox school, they don't at all teach history. So this all complex setting creates big challenges for educators to come together and build this mutual trust and understanding needed in order to come together and to create those bridges between the kids in order for them not to be afraid and alienated to one another. And when we started this program, basically a year and a half ago, it was exactly the beginning of what's called the knives and division. It was a very tough context in which to bring together educators, but we still did that, and today we already work with the second group of principals. The first group of principals were 24 principals, we now work second group of principals 22, and we are now recruiting the first group. The intention of the Ministry of Education and of the Municipality of Jerusalem is within 5 years to have 120 schools on board. And this would make a systemic change in the city of Jerusalem, obviously, because this means that these people know each other at the level of the principal, at the level of the teachers, and at the level of the kids. And from there, I want to ask my colleague, Mazen Faraj, to introduce his work in this program, which is how do you build this confidence and this trust between the educators when on the beginning you have a strong sense of threat and fear, mutual fear. Okay, and I would like to just add a few words about Mazen. I came across to meeting the parent circle because the parent circle were interested for CET to develop some curricula about the narratives. So we did that, and from there on we became really good colleagues, and I invited Mazen to be the Palestinian facilitator of those groups of principals because it was very important for the Palestinian participants that are not Israeli citizens to have some kind of grounding into their Palestinian identity, and Mazen is a Palestinian resident of the West Bank, the Palestinian Authority. So please.
Thank you. Can I stand?
Yes.
On the chair.
No, I'm not that short. Good morning.
Morning.
I will ask one question, and please be honest, okay, before I stand. If you want me to tell who I am, I have to tell the truth. Is that acceptable?
Sure.
Thank you very much. My name is Mazen Faraj. I'm from the Hish refugee camp near Bethlehem, West Bank. I'm a Palestinian, I'm an Arab, I'm a Muslim. But before anything else, I'm a human being. I grew up in the Hish refugee camp, and today I'm married. I have 3 daughters, as in Hebrew said, Abu al-Banat. And you can see the white hair from these daughters. And I'm continue, and I still live in the same place until now. And today, actually, after we finished here, I will go back to hug my 3 daughters again and again. So to grow up as a kid in a refugee camp and as a Palestinian, and to grow as with a full of suffering, pain, with a big family, and to grow up as when I remember very well when being in the Palestinian school from the United Nations, we'd be more than 60 to 70 students in the same classroom. I remember very well that most of the time in the summer we didn't have water, and most of the time in the winter we didn't have electricity. And I remember very well that my father was all the time in the house without work, without job, without nothing. And I remember very well I never had any kind of a space or a place to play as a kid. And all what we have, and the main place that we can play as a kid, which is the street. This is how I grew up, and this is how I start to face the life as a normal life. And I start to ask all these questions. Why? Why are you supposed to live in this kind of situation in this life? And all the questions and all the answers that inside my self and in my head, for one reason. This is our Nakba, our catastrophe. What's happened in 1948 for the Palestinians. And in that time, my father was 6 years old, and he expelled from his original village. It's called Ras Abu Ammar, and today it's Sur Hadassa. It's 15 or 20 minutes from Jerusalem. And they're running from the fear and the war and the death and the violence, and they find themselves in a place called the refugee camp with the help from the United Nations. And we just told it will be for the short time. And the short time it will be this year more than 70 years for our Nakba, our catastrophe. And we're still waiting for justice, rights, solution. I don't know how to call it. But at least to try to raise my 3 daughters in a normal life. And to raise my daughter in the same experience that I had in my life. So to have all this heavy narrative and this heavy history, you have to do something. And in that time, the Palestinians have been more or less 800,000. And today there are more than 12 million. Most of them, they are refugees. In West Bank, Gaza Strip, East Jerusalem, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan. And also the Palestinians, they live inside Israel in 1948, or what we call it Israeli Arab, or the Palestinian Arab Israeli. I don't know. There is a lot of names for everyone, and we can put a lot of hate for everyone. So to grow up in this kind of situation, you have to do something, and you have to express yourself, and you have to find a way how I will explain myself and tell the Israelis that I'm exist, and I want my right back, and want my freedom back. So I joined the first Intifada in 1987, when I was just 12 years old. And most of the Palestinians would be uprising in a very non-violent way, just to tell the Israelis that we are still exist and want our life back. So I get arrested in 1990 when I was in age of 15, for the first time in my life to be in Israel jail. And I spent for the first time a few months, and it was the next time, the third time, and the fourth time, and I spent altogether more than 3 years and a half. I lost my education, I lost my school, but also it was a big experience and hard experience for me in Israel jail. To be a kid in very hard investigation, to be a kid in a very dark place, and to be a kid far away from your family and far away from your future. And instead to build my future and my life and my education, I was in a different place, I was in a different situation. And this is actually what we call it, the new and old generations together. It's going all the time. Because of the conflict, because of the occupation, because of the violence, because of the war, and because of a lot of reasons. It's beyond all what we had in our country there. So in 1993, 1994, they started to speak about Oslo Agreement, the peace agreement, and Arafat and Rabin. They signed the Oslo Agreement, and no one can imagine that Arafat and Rabin, they will stand in the front of the White House inside the agreement. And the PLO, the Palestinians, they will recognize Israel as an Israel state. And the Israelis, they have to recognize few years as a Palestinian independent state. But this, again, a few years, it's now more than 20 years. And we, as two nations, let's say it, we have to take the responsibility, the Palestinian and the Israelis, that we failed to secure this peace agreement. We failed to try to build a better future. In that time, in 1994, I was really feeling and see it in the ground. Yes, we have peace. We can go everywhere. We can do everything that we need. We start to look for a better life, education, life, job, money, business, everything. We become kind of a normal nation. But suddenly, in 2000, we have to start again the second intifada. Suddenly, when Arafat and Barak, they're coming back from Camp David in the end of 2000, and Barak said there is no bar on the Palestinian side after they failed to sign the agreement. And Arafat said, wow, in lack of hope, how it will be. And then suddenly, it was the street and the ground kind of thirsty for violence. And we start, all of us, the new second intifada. It was more violence and more people get killed everywhere and every day. And no one from my family and also me get involved in the second intifada. But actually we had paid the highest price in this second intifada when we received a phone call from the hospital in Bethlehem that my father, or the body of my father in the hospital, and if we can go in to see him to check what's happened for the last time. And we went to the Israeli army that night, in my camp, we've been under the curfew, and we asked them to go to the hospital. But they said, it's not allowed. You have to wait until the morning. But I cannot imagine that anyone can wait all this long night or long hours to see what's happened to his father for the last time. But this is actually what we mean to live under the military law of the Israelis. And this is actually what we mean that all the time we felt as Palestinians, and until now, the culture of not allowed, forbidden, not allowed to exist, not allowed to dream, not allowed to have your right, not allowed to be a normal life. And suddenly we have to face it what's happened to my father. My father was 62 years old in 2002, almost 15 years now. When he was coming back from Jerusalem to Bethlehem, he was in his work, and in that days, it was the siege of the Nativity Church in Bethlehem, and everywhere it was just about to smell the blood in the streets. Everywhere it was the killing. In Bethlehem, Tel Aviv, Haifa, Gaza, everywhere in Palestine and Israel. And the Israeli army, they start shooting him and they kill him without any reason, or maybe there's a million reason behind it. Conflict, occupation, violence. We can name it, how many we can. And after 3 days of our Muslims tradition, we have to wake up in the morning and to continue the normal life. But I can't tell you, there's nothing normal anymore since that time. That's all. Stuck. Stop. I don't know how to do it with myself. I don't know how to continue my life. My father, he was a father and a mother for me, because I lost my mother when I was 6 months. So he led me to grow as a very good friend, as someone who's so close to him, and he tried to give me that feeling of I'm a mother and a father too for him. So it was kind of, he was really so close to me. So I don't know how to continue, I don't know what to do with myself. A lot of people think about revenge. A lot of people just become a suicide bomber to kill as much as we can from the Israelis or from the Jews. But I never think about revenge. Because my case as a Palestinian, it's about justice. It's about rights. It's not about killing and violence. And the other part of people, they die slowly with their memories without to do nothing. They just stuck with their memories. So it's taken me like almost 3 years to know what I need and what I want. And suddenly, one from my friend invited me to meet the parents at the bereaved families forum, Palestinian and Israelis for peace and reconciliation. More than 600 families in this organization, all of them, they pay the highest price in this country. I remember when he invited me to the meeting, I just told him, are you crazy? How come I will meet my enemy? How come I will sit around the table with the Israelis, because there is no one in Israel want peace, and there's no one in Israel want to respect me as a human being. And I was really curious. And for the first time, I met Rami Hanan, an Israeli from Jerusalem. He lost his daughter Smadar in 1997 in a suicide bomb. And I start to compare who suffer more, because we used to do it, and until now we do it. It's very good for all of us to be victims. It's very good for all of us not to take the responsibility. It's very good for all of us to start to compare and to have this competition, who suffer more and who suffer more. And I started this way, but suddenly I start to connect with his feeling, and with his pain, with his suffering, and the way that he takes after he lost his daughter, the path of peace and the path of reconciliation. And since that time until now, I devote my life to this message and this work. We have two offices, one in Beit Jal and one in Tel Aviv. We have two staff. I'm the co-director, and Rami today he's the co-director, Israeli co-director. For the first time after 20 years in this organization, we have a joint board, Palestinian and Israeli. For the first time, we have a full respect in this organization and full equality for both all the Palestinian and the Israelis. We do more than 500 dialogue meetings at high school every year. Two members, Palestinian and Israelis, they go to the Israel high school because all what they said about how I grew up as a Palestinian, you don't have to believe me, and you don't have to trust me. Just try to understand this is my narrative. This is how we grow up as a Palestinian. And suddenly when I'm showing up in the Israel high school, it will be the first time for the Israeli student to see a Palestinian as a human being. Because also the same process happening inside the Israeli society. They grow up with this fear of history, Holocaust, Spain, 4,000 years we look for the state. 4,000 years we look for the home. And from the family, education, and politicians, and everything to be ready in the age of 17 or 18 years old to secure the Israeli state. And always we growing as a Palestinians to become a freedom fighter against the occupation. But the most important question for all of us in this room, where I meet as a freedom fighter, and where is this Israeli soldier meet a Palestinian? You meet him in checkpoints, violence, war, intifada. They never met around the table as a human being. And this is actually what we try to do more and more in the parent circle by this a small and a simple message. If we, the Palestinian and Israelis, member in the parent circle, pay the highest price in this conflict, we can sit next to each other. We can talk with each other. We are not talking about forgiveness. We are not talking about forgiveness. Because I will never forget what's happened in my life. I cannot, as a human being. And also I don't have the right to forgive what's happened to my father. But in the middle, there's the dialogue, understand, knowing, narrative, history. There's a lot of things we just ignore it in our history. We just ignore it in the process how to build the machine of the hatred between the two nations, and to build more and more the walls between the nations. And without instead to build the bridge between the two nations, we build more walls, more checkpoints, more every single thing that make two nations, the lack of security for the Israelis and the lack of freedom and free movement for the Palestinians. One day we have to overcome with all these walls. I don't care about the concrete wall. I'm talking about the walls in our head and about our narrative, about history. It's the time, I will finish. Sorry. I know the mediator, how they don't, because I do this sometimes. I think it's the time for all of us to live in peace, to live in security for the Israeli state. It's my freedom. And my freedom is security for the Israeli state, as a Palestinian. So I get involved in this program with my colleague and my dear friend Myriam. When the first time we met in our narrative group, and we start to want to work with her organization, and she wanted to be part from the group to understand more the organization and to have this journey to together with Palestinian and Israelis, the journey and the narrative in the history. And after 7 meetings, we become so close, so friends, colleagues, understand. And then when she decided to do this project in East and West Jerusalem, and she offered me this, and I said, oh my gosh. Another things I will be responsible for that, but I think it's beside all what I'm doing in the parent circle, which is 24 hours, but this mission in East and West Jerusalem, it's add a value to my holy mission in the parent circle. So we'll talk more about the details and how we will do it after, he's look at me like I'm stole something from him. And I said, if you want the truth, it's the truth. So thank you very much.
So I'm standing too, so that I will get into really a little bit into the details of that problem. So yeah, basically I went through myself a process into that. I was working for more than 10 years in shared education inside Israel between Israeli Arabs and Jewish citizens of Israel. And then there was this opportunity, the head of education in Jerusalem learned about my work in sharing classes inside Israel. And he told me, come along and try to do it in Jerusalem. And I said, oh, for God's sake, Jerusalem is the most complicated place. How can you do something that works in Jerusalem? I mean, it's really tough there. And the anxiety and the separation and the segregation is so deep there. How do you bring those people together? And I myself had absolutely no experience with Palestinians from the West Bank. And that's why I came to learn about it, because in Israel for many years already, we had absolutely no contact with Palestinians from the West Bank. Totally cut off. I have lots of friends and colleagues inside Israel that are principals and teachers and working there for a long time, but I had no contacts in Palestine. Suddenly, when I went through myself this kind of reconciliation process with Palestinians from the West Bank, I felt that I was more equipped to try and tackle Jerusalem, which is such a complicated, conflictual place. So really what we do there is that we established a few principles based upon a social psychologist called Oldbrook, and it's about equal status. In order to bring together educators from East and West Jerusalem, we had first of all to work on the equal status. The situation in Israel, there are lots of gaps, social gaps between East and West Jerusalem, and the poorest population of Jerusalem are the ultra-Orthodox and the Palestinian. So there were lots of issues into that contact, but it was important for the equal status in the room to be there, like we have simultaneous translation in order to enable both sides of the groups to speak in their own language. Another thing that you have to understand that inside the Palestinian group, there are some people that are citizens, 48 Arabs, so it's called, and some others that have no citizenship. It's another distinction. And inside the Jewish group, you have all kinds of people. You have ultra-Orthodox, you have religious, and you have secular. And as you know, all of these differences are also not easy to swallow on the Jewish side. I mean, it's not like everyone is hoping for peace inside the Jewish society. There are lots of people that are not really so keen about a two-state solution or whatever solution it would be, and very happy with the current solution. So one was equal status. The second key issue was to gain the institutional support of the institutions around. The third one was to bring the people to have a common goal. And in our case, the common goal that we could reach is that all of these educators were hoping for their kids on both sides to gain a better education and to live a normal life, not to be under violence and stress all their lives like we are living in Jerusalem for many years already. And so basically, what we decided to do is to create some really in-depth personal interaction between those groups of principals and then of teachers, in order for them to feel enough trust for the other side to be able to plan together joint classes in English, in math, in robotics, in all kinds of topics that they can do together and it wouldn't be something sporadic once or twice, like having a nice sharing hummus together, but it would be something more integral to the study. I mean, and this is something that parents, even though they are not so keen about their kids meeting with the other side, if the purpose, if the goal is educational, then it's easier to convince those parents that it's worth doing it. So that was the key issues. And the last thing I will relate to is that we are now, just 10 days ago, we were engaging with the second group of principals. And I want to tell you the concluding remarks of one of our principals. His name is Yossi. He is a principal of a yeshiva, a religious school in Jerusalem, and he lives in a settlement in the West Bank. And he comes from a very well-known family of rabbis. And for him, it was very challenging to come into that group, because basically it's not done in his social environment. He wouldn't do that. And he was so afraid of it that he didn't even tell his team at the school that he was part of that group. I mean, you have to imagine how difficult it is to cross the lines. So on the last meeting, on the second day of our group seminar, it's after 5 months of getting to know each other and visiting each other. And these 2 days are very strongly emotional because it's about personal story and collective story. He said something that in the beginning was quite strange to all of the people in the circle. He said, you know what, for many years I was hoping that there would be a button, that if I could push that button, there would be no Arabs between the sea and the river, not even one. And that would be it. But I also came to think that maybe there are some Palestinians that think the same way, that would like for the Arabs, for the Jews to evaporate, not to be there anymore. And what happened to him in that group is that after 5 months, he realized that, first of all, there is no such a button. We are there together, and we have to find a way to get along together. And the second thing that he said that was so striking to me is that if there was such a button, he wouldn't push on it, because he doesn't believe that's the solution. The solution is to understand to the heart of the issues of the other side. And so I'm providing that example to show you that we really speak about a transformative and healing process to get in-depth into our issues. And when we talk together in those kind of circles that Mazen is facilitating with another facilitator in the group, what we work on is to really get in-depth into the issue that, you know, we have no choice. Because we are educators, we have to find ways to bring another future for our kids. And that's the issue. And today I'm happy to say that we have already over 1,000 kids studying Hebrew and Arabic at the Hebrew University, studying English together, studying robotics together, studying math groups and science projects together. And these things are really making a real systemic change in the city of Jerusalem. And I'm very, very proud of it, because even though it's not very sexy and it's not on the news every day, because on the news, obviously, they prefer all the time to speak about the violence and the bad things that are happening and the destruction of the houses and all the complex things that happen. But what we see for truth, and we see very, very clear-cut evidence of it, is that this work on the ground between the grown-ups, between the principals, and between teachers, in order to build together some initiatives that are, sustainable, is making some real change.
Wow.
My story, no one can.
I know. You did a good job. I just will add a couple of wrinkles to this. So I am the director of Kids for Peace here in Washington, D.C., but we have a whole team in Jerusalem that leads our efforts there. Today working with about 500 families from East and West Jerusalem, as well as neighboring Palestinian cities in the West Bank. And Kids for Peace started in 2002 in the midst of the Second Intifada by a bunch of parents who saw their kids growing up in a time of violence and wanted to offer them an alternative place to grow up together with the other side, to do that basic work of humanization, over the course of the years, we really have made a pivot also to focus on grassroots activism, to realize that dialogue is the first step of this puzzle, but beyond that, we have to be invested in real practical steps of social change that are going to shift the reality of life in Jerusalem. Kids for Peace also started with a desire to tackle religion, so not only the complex issue of Jerusalem, but also the complex issue of religion. And to, good luck. And to put religion at the forefront of our work for peace. And so Kids for Peace is an interfaith youth movement, working among Jews, Christians, Muslims, and others who live in Jerusalem, focused first on interfaith connection with the belief that dealing with that hard issue provides a real foundation of trust and knowledge that can lead to work together for social change. It allows us to touch some of the populations of Jerusalem that are not usually involved in peace projects. People who are more traditionally religious, Jews, Christians, and Muslims find a place in Kids for Peace, a place to come. And I think the message I always try to tell is that there is a willing partner for peace in every neighborhood. Kids for Peace has started with 12 kids in 2002. Just 2 weeks ago, we brought 140 new families into Kids for Peace. These are choices that parents are making voluntarily of their own volition, right? This is not that they're being signed up because they're in school. This is a positive, constructive choice that parents are making to bring their kids at a young age into relationship with the other. Kids starting Kids for Peace when they're 12 years old. It's wild to watch them come into the room in 6th grade, having this first experience across all of the borders that divide them. And Kids for Peace, we aim to provide a place where young people can grow up together. So they're meeting with us twice a month after school, twice a year overnight retreats, a summer experience every year that guides them along a path from the initial encounter and dialogue through understanding of narrative and history and personal identity into skills for leadership and then on into social change, with the idea of building an active community of people who are visibly and in public working together to make a difference. We're grateful for some support from USAID this year, which is helping Kids for Peace to grow our programs really substantially. And part of that growth is not only in numbers, but also to grow in our public work. One of the things we realized a few years ago was that as wonderful and personally transformative as dialogue sessions in a nice, safe room are, that interpersonal connection and that individual transformation doesn't necessarily prepare people to do change in the world. That the bridge from the private to the public is one that we have to help people walk. And so we've been, to the theme of shared spaces, I've been working really hard over the last 2 years to imagine Kids for Peace as creating these little mini shared spaces all across the city of Jerusalem. One of them is our office, and if you're ever coming to Israel, come and visit us. We're right on the seam between East and West Jerusalem in Sheikh Jarrah, very complicated neighborhood. But every day, our team of 10 staff, Israelis and Palestinians, come to work side by side with one another. They're religious Jews, they're Palestinians from the West Bank who cross through the Kalandia checkpoint every day on their way to work, and they sit down to build this movement of peace. We have almost 100 educators who work with our kids, also Israelis, Palestinians, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. So when you walk into this world of Hebrew and Arabic being spoken, of people from different narratives creating this community together, just that workspace itself is the shared space that we're now flipping into a social impact hub, so that young activists, Israelis and Palestinians who are working for peace, can have an office space, an incubator, where they can come and work side by side with other colleagues and help their ideas to blossom and flourish. A big part of our program for our 7th and 8th graders is during religious holidays. The youth invite each other to their homes. So imagine yourself not only having a conversation with someone who's different, but physically crossing those divides of Jerusalem. Walk, for an Israeli Jew to walk into a Palestinian neighborhood, go up the stairs into their house, sit down and share a meal during Ramadan, and vice versa during Sukkot or during Easter. The depth of relationships that happens around the table when people are in each other's homes is really transformative, and it invites people on both sides to take risk on behalf of the other, to experience a little bit of challenge and fear and danger, and to touch the realities of each other's lives. For Israeli Jews who go into Palestinian neighborhoods in East Jerusalem and realize most of them have no sidewalks, there are no parks or community centers in East Jerusalem, the degree of poverty is huge, and their eyes are opened to a reality that they have never seen before. And then from those experiences of physically walking in each other's shoes, begin to develop a sense of shared responsibility for the future do something about this reality that preserves their own rights and freedoms and narrative, but also takes the other into account in a kind of attitude of mutual flourishing. I deeply care about and love you. We've been in a relationship for a long period of time, and we want both of us to have a good life into the future. So the home hospitality has been a piece. This last year we launched a new initiative for young adults to do grassroots social change initiative. And two guys, one Israeli, one Palestinian, took an abandoned rooftop in the old city that had been a place of a lot of crime and drugs and violence, and turned it into a place of dialogue and social change and arts and creativity, and using that as a method for peace. Another one of our activists is doing a whole project on translation and how videos that are shared on social media, the way that they're translated can either incite violence or lead people towards peace. Fascinating ideas that people are trying to bring to life. And I think the most important message is that there are people who are dying for this chance to do peace. We have no problem with recruitment. We have waiting lists upon waiting lists upon waiting lists, and we're just one of 100 organizations that are doing this kind of work in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The only thing that's been holding us back are financial resources to be able to pull this off. And when it comes to what's the thing that you can do that was asked in the last session, the support for this international fund, which you're going to hear a lot more about, is a critical thing that will really change our worlds in terms of the ability to do work on the ground. And to Aaron David Miller's point about leadership, ownership, and U.S. role, it's ownership that we can really make a difference. All of what we're doing is to try and build ownership of peace on the part of Israelis and Palestinians to really lift up, promote, celebrate, stand behind the people in both societies who are taking huge risks to be able to bring this pro-peace message to their own communities. They deserve our support. It's one of the reasons why I love my job. I get to support people on the ground. It's not about me as an American bringing my ideas or perspectives to the table. It's about me being able to stand beside local Israelis and Palestinians who are making hard choices to support peace and to surround them with the love and care and resources that they need to make a difference. We have found that this long-term sustained approach that everybody has been talking about really works. There's been a lot of critique of one-time dialogue programs come together, eat hummus and go home. None of us are doing that anymore. We're doing deep, serious work over long periods of time. And we found in Kids for Peace that during times of violence, when the stabbing attacks last year, our participation went up, attendance went up. People came together like never before, looking for a place to be with others who support peace. And that's what we're trying to do in Kids for Peace with our unique angle of youth, religion, long-term youth movement, but also as part of this broader network of people who are trying to strengthen the pro-peace voice of Israelis and Palestinians. So I'll stop there for now.
Okay, thank you.